Welcome to ground control. Okay, so I have my build and conversion of the Eachine F16 50mm EDF jet, courtesy of Banggood. I want to thank them for sending this kit. So this is the kit version. Instead of putting an EDF unit in it, I put a pusher motor and prop. I was able to keep my weight down. I met my weight goal even after putting 7 grams worth of landing skids on it. And I was able to get the CG balance with my lightweight 3S 1300 milliamp hour 3S Lipo. So at least in theory and on the bench, I should have a 1.8 to 1 thrust to weight ratio on this. So I wanted to see what the performance would be of this airframe with a pusher motor and prop as opposed to an EDF unit, even running on 4S. This is going to be running on a 3S. So let's go out to the field and do the maiden launch and see what kind of performance we get out of it, and everything goes well. When we come back, I will give you all the specs and a list of all the components that I used for this project, and I will also have links to all those in the show notes, including this kit. So I'll see you out at the field. Okay, it's time for the maiden launch. We've got wind out here this morning of 4 to 7. Anyway, we're going to see how this performs with a pusher motor on it. Alright, I'm not going to be able to throw it directly into the wind because I'm going to walk down here a bit. It's coming right out of the sun. I'll do the best I can. I think about 60% throttle on launch might do it. Okay, let's see. Here we go. Let's try a vertical. Ready? Oh man, that has got a vertical, does it not? I've got my timer set for 4 minutes. That wind is really pushing it around. It must be a lot heavier. Must be a lot heavier up there than it is what I'm feeling on the ground. And I think I'm going to have to man, that is a big loop. I'm going to have to tone down the expo a little bit. The controls with the pusher motor actually feel a little mushy. I'm running circuits here because I got that big ball of fire behind me. Wow, that was fast. That was a fast roll. Stay out of the sun. Stay out of the sun. Yeah. With that sun in the position it's in, it is kind of hard to tell orientation on this. Nice roll rate. Sorry, I'm keeping the altitude a little high because of the wind.
and because I haven't flown it with a pusher prop before, but I definitely think that the performance of this airframe is much better on a pusher motor and prop than it is on an EDF. What do you guys think? I mean, that is some vertical that it has now. I don't know if it's any faster than it was, but it is definitely has more power. Sounds fast. Okay, let's bring it in for a landing. All right, not too bad. Not a very good landing, but not bad for a maiden flight. And looked like considerable wind up there. And I think that I'm going to make sure the prop and everything is okay. Skids are still on there. Alright, so successful maiden flight. It definitely has a lot more power and a lot better vertical climb with a pusher motor and prop than it does with the EDF unit, even on a 4S. This is just on 3S, and I want to check my voltages real quick, because obviously I was not easy in the throttle, and I usually never am. But let's see here, what kind of battery voltage we have left after that 4-minute flight. And I'll try to hold it up here where you guys can see it. I don't know, with the sun to the side of me. 3.8, 3.8, 3.8. Not too bad, huh? Almost 3.85 per cell. And the battery is just barely warm. So, pretty awesome, I think. I've got some tuning to do on it. I don't know why with the pusher motor and prop it felt a little mushier on the controls with the amount of expo that I have in it than it did on 4S with the EDF, because it certainly has a lot more power. I don't know if it's pushing it any faster through the air at full throttle, but it certainly has more power to climb vertical than it did with the EDF unit. As you can see, it's going to get probably twice the flight time. I would say the way I was flying, I could get a good 6 minutes of flight time out of this with the little 3S 1300 milliamp hour 30C LiPo, and using that with a 3S setup on the EDF unit, I was only getting 3 minutes. So more power and at least double the amount of flight time. So I think that's pretty darn good. Alright, so I will see you back at the hangar. I really don't want to toss it in the wind again. I would rather come out and fly it again when the wind is a little bit calmer. And then I'll give you all the information on this setup. See you back at the hangar.
Okay, I know it didn't look like this when I took it out. So before you ask, I will tell you, and unfortunately my camera gave out. I put it in the air one more time and my camera gave out. It only recorded for like 1 minute and 38 seconds. So I wish you could have seen the crash, because it was spectacular. But I'm going to tell you exactly what happened. So I made 2 mistakes today. I didn't take my own advice. I made 2 mistakes today, and the 2 mistakes I made was, number one, when it's that windy out and you're getting ready to maiden a plane, you pack up your gear, and you go home and you wait for better weather to maiden your plane. That was the first mistake that I made. But we've had 5 straight days of rain and wind and complete cloud cover, and I was really anxious to put this in the air. So that was my first mistake. My second mistake, and it was completely pilot error, I was finishing up my second flight. I had just gotten, you know, my timer notification on the transmitter, and as I normally do, I was going to make one more circuit to check the lane in both directions. I'd had a lot of traffic through there this morning, so I was taking my time to check directions on the lane to make sure nobody was coming down so I could land. Well, I had just turned back upwind, and I should have kept more altitude on the plane, but I didn't. That was another mistake that I made. So I'm looking down the lane, and then when I look back at the plane, because I already had it in the turn to come back to me, I let the nose drop. And that was because I was flying it a little nose heavy to penetrate the wind a little bit better. And I was able to bring the plane up, but there was a 4-foot cactus there, and I could not clear the cactus. So the cactus caught the edge right in between the front of the rocket and the wingtip. I mean, it just hooked it, and the plane spun in the air, flat spun in the air, and then when it came down, the nose impacted the ground, and it broke the nose off. And the cactus pulled off the wingtip and the front of the rocket. And since the nose impacted the ground, it also cracked the canopy. Now, I know it looks bad, but this is going to be an easy repair, and I will have it back in the air again. But it's not going to look as pretty. It's already got 3 or 4 battle scars on it now. So, but as you saw from the first flight, and I'm going to have to flag this battery that I've got in this camera right now, because obviously it's not holding the charge anymore. But I wanted to demonstrate the amount of thrust that this pusher motor and prop provide on this airframe. So I'm glad that you got to see that from the first flight. You got to see the vertical climb on it. You got to see the loops, the split S maneuvers, the rolls. I've got some tuning to do on it. For whatever reason, it felt different in the air, and maybe because of the wind, I don't know. But it felt different in the air than it did with the EDF unit, even though it's balanced the same. It had the same amount of expo, the same amount of deflection on the control surfaces. When I was flying it, the amount of expo that I had on the elevator on this conversion felt mushy on the controls. So on the second flight, I decreased the elevator expo from 50% to 40%, and then it felt a lot better. But I also need to put a little more movement into the elevator, and I don't know why that is. Like I said, it could be the wind. You know, when I have an opportunity to take this back out in calmer winds, I may back off all that. And then I increase the dual rate on the ailerons from 65% to 75%, leaving the expo at 50, and that felt a lot better as well. The elevator didn't feel mushy anymore, but I need more throw in the elevator to get me out of trouble like that when I need it. But and you get more power, you get better performance, and you get at least double the flight time. And when I landed the second time, you know, after I picked up the plane into bits and pieces and did the walk of shame back to the table, I took the battery out and checked the voltage in it again, and 3.85 volts per cell. So on a little bit over a 4-minute flight. So I should definitely be able to get, the way I fly, I should be able to get 6 to 7 minutes of flight time out of this, leaving a little over 3.5 volts per cell in the pack, and that's on a 3S. So the performance of this with a pusher motor and prop on a 3S Lipo was significantly better than the EDF version was on a 4S Lipo. and I'm going to get double, probably a little more than double the amount of flight time on it, you know, with you know, additional power over what the 4S EDF version has given me. So I am completely happy about that. It would have come home in one piece had I taken my own advice, but I didn't, and it cost me. So anyway, I'm going to get the repairs effected on it today. It's just going to take some glue, and you know, that's pretty much it. Some glue, and I'll have it back together and ready to go back out and fly again. So I'm hoping at the beginning of this week we will have a break in the rain, the cloud cover, and the wind, so I can take it back out again and better demonstrate it. But I am extremely happy with the performance on this pusher, motor, and prop. Okay, so now I want to get my sheet, and I want to give you all the specifications. There will be links to all the components in the show notes, including the kit version of this airframe. And I absolutely love this airframe. This is an excellent flying and handling airframe, and very aerobatic. So I'm glad that Banggood sent me this kit. I want to thank them again, so that I could demonstrate this, and this gives you yet another option for this airframe. So I'll be back in a minute with all the specs. Okay, so let me give you the numbers here. All right, so I have to add landing skids to my planes. It's just not an option for where I land. So the landing skids added 7 grams of weight to the airframe, but that was unavoidable. You can land in grass and you don't have to fabricate some type of landing skid. You'll be able to save 7 grams of weight. All right, so the all-up weight without the landing skids on this airframe, the airframe with the skids was 359 grams. So 352 without the landing skids. My all-up weight with the 3S 1300 milliamp hour 30C Lipo, which is what I flew it with today, was 465 grams. The motor and prop put out 863 grams at wide open throttle. And so that gives me a 1.85 to 1 thrust to weight ratio on this. And those 1300 3S lipos, the 30C lipos, only weigh 106 grams. Those are going to work out absolutely fine for this airframe. I'm also going to test fly it with the 3S 1500 milliamp hour 35C lipos I have. They're the newest lipos that I have, and those weigh 125 grams. So that will put my all-up weight with those lipos at 484 grams, and the thrust to weight ratio will be 1.78 to 1. So it probably won't have unlimited vertical, but it will be very close, even with that battery at 125 grams of weight of battery. Okay, so the components. I used the 30 amp speed controller out of the Eachine Atom RC Seal Wing because I had replaced that with a 40 amp PSC. It's very lightweight, it's very compact, and the leads on it are long enough that I didn't have to use any extension cables to go from the motor to get the servo cable connector for the receiver and the power cable into the canopy. So I was good to go with that, and it fit right inside that wire channel inside the fuselage. The motor that I have installed on it is the Racerstar BR2406S, and I think that is a 2552 kV motor. I don't know how they got so specific on the kV, but I think that's what it lists as. It lists as a 2552 kV motor. I did have for that motor with the lock nut that comes with the motor. It was too tall to engage the nylock, so I used a low profile aluminum lock nut, and it just does get that prop on that motor with a spacer on the front of it. I used a little prop spacer on the front of it to pull, because it's got a lot of pitch at the hub, to pull the blade away from the top of the motor a little bit, and then use that low profile aluminum lock nut, and that worked perfectly. The prop that I'm using is one of my favorite props for these park jets with high kV motors. It's an Rctimer, but it's also branded as a KMP and an EMP prop. It's a 6x3 composite high efficiency sport prop, and I love them. There will be links to those in the show notes as well. And the battery, the servos that I was using are analog, not digital. I would have preferred to use digital, but this is what I had in my inventory. And these are the Racerstar SG90 9-gram nylon gear analog servos, and they work fine. I did run into one issue on my build, and that was that the control rods for the elevators were too long, and it uses those threaded clevises, those plastic clevises. Well, I could not get that clevis run down far enough to be able to get the elevators in a neutral position, so they were just too long. So luckily I had a couple of plastic clevises that would fit on those 1.2 millimeter diameter control rods just fine, and they use a set screw. So what I did was I cut almost the entire threaded portion off of those control rods, and then used those plastic clevises that I could move up and down to get the elevators in a completely neutral position with the servos in the center position. So that worked out great. But I was lucky I had a couple of those in my inventory to use, or I would have had to fabricate new control rods for it. So that's what I have. I don't have it all tuned yet. I don't have it flying exactly the way I want yet. So as soon as I get that completed, then I will publish a setup and model file, OpenTX model file for this jet, so that if you guys want to do a similar project, because it's awesome on power with this pusher motor and prop. I mean, as long as I don't completely destroy it, I'm going to be putting a lot of flights on this aircraft, and I'll be publishing several of the flight videos. So, especially once I get it all tuned out and get it handling exactly the way I want, so I can better show you the performance of it in the air. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the air.